But like, why is every like YA love interest like the dollar store version of like Holden Caulfield? Hello everyone, I'm Ishani Bakshi, and on this channel I travel the world via books, but today I'm just staying in Sweet Home USA and doing a review of an American classic, The Catcher in the Rye. So, why did I say like I was that journalist from Live with Maddie? I don't know. Anyways, so The Catcher in the Rye, for those of you who don't know, follows Holden Caulfield, who is a very affluent teenager who has just been kicked out of his current boarding school because, well, he didn't give like any effort, and 3 days before he's supposed to go home permanently, he decides that he's done with school because of a certain few altercations he had with his peers, and decides he's gonna go to New York City and spend 3 days by himself doing a variety of things. So throughout the book we follow him on his many different exploits, in which he definitely burns a lot of bridges, but we also follow him sort of peel down the many layers of himself. Meaning, in the start of the book, he is a very immature, dishonest, and rebellious character. But throughout the book, we see him peel down those layers to reveal a very lost and scared boy on the precipice of adulthood who doesn't know what he wants to be or who he wants to be. And I think jdsalinger just did that so masterfully that I have to just commend him on his writing capabilities. And overall, this is a great book for anyone looking for a coming of age following a very flawed character who is definitely a bit misogynistic and like every kind of phobic out there. But I mean, there's no but, he's an awful person. But I think in the struggles he goes to, the internal struggles he goes through, are very relatable in a sense, even if not all of us feel such extreme emotions. Another thing great about The Catcher in the Rye is that it has a very strong sibling relationship, meaning the few times we do see Holden interacting with his sister, we see how they're kind of foils of each other, meaning she's the more sensible one, she's the one who's like really in love with life, very lighthearted, and we really see how he learns from her and how he sort of values her so much more than everything else in life, which I think is so sweet, and it's so nice to read about. Even though he really should value more things, it's very nice to see that at least he loves his sister and his sister really loves him back. And every like discussion they have is so touching, especially because Holden is the type of character who thinks no one in the world loves him, but seeing that his sister does can really be very nice and sweet to read about. So now I'll be going into like slight spoilers, not real spoilers, but just my own like thoughts about the book, which sort of pull on events. So if you really don't want any spoilers at all, I recommend just dropping out now and leaving a like. But if not, let's get into it. So one thing I think I mentioned is that Holden is a very lonely character, and to sort of expand on that, throughout the book we watch him every time he's in a cab he asks out someone for a drink, and every time he's just having his inner monologues he always just like mentions, maybe I should give old Jane a buzz, which is a friend from his past. And throughout this we can see that he's very by himself. He left the school because he was sick of everyone, but maybe leaving everyone is what made him realize that actually he needs the people around him to feel something. And I think that's a very interesting thing, because sometimes people get so wrapped up in hating everything and hating everyone that people forget that people are a necessary part of their lives, if that makes any sense. I think Holden definitely becomes much more grateful in that way, but it also kind of a negative thing because he starts deteriorating without anyone to help him up, because he kind of isolated himself from everyone that could help him. One more thing that I observed about him is that he's very, very scared. Like I said before, he's just so terrified of adulthood and putting any initiative in life. This conversation he has with his teacher at the end of the story really kind of highlights that. He's so short-sighted, and he just knows it. And there's so many things he's scared of becoming that he falls in the trap of not becoming anything at all. He's just falling without any destination, and he just doesn't know what to do, and he's too scared to try because he's scared that he'll become one of the phonies he hates. And that's just such a hard place to be in my opinion, and I think Salinger writes about it so well, so masterfully. And I really think that this is a perfect coming of age novel because of that. Also, reading this book, the emotions in there are so relatable that it's kind of hard to forget that this was written in like the 40s. And that's also because Salinger's writing style is very accessible compared to other classic authors. Like, I tried to read The Great Gatsby, and it's a great book, but it's also relatively harder to read, even Jane Austen, compared to Salinger. And I think that's because the writing style is the thought process of a teenage boy, so it's not going to be super flowery or using a bunch of figurative languages. It's just going to be typical, like, 5-word sentences. And I think that's what makes it a great like intro point to the classics, because a lot of people can be intimidated by them, but Salinger has a very accessible, very simple writing style. For example, the first sentence of the book is, if you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, or what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all that before they had me. Like, that's so easy to understand, that's so entertaining, and that's something you would read in the 21st century, and that's, I think, what really separates The Catcher in the Rye from other classics. So overall, I really, really liked this book because I think it captures an emotional and like a teenage state very well through the eyes of Mr. Holden Caulfield, and I think has a really nice writing style. Though not very descriptive, it definitely is very easy and accessible, which I love because I don't like descriptive writing, as you know from my last video. And overall, I'd give this book a 5 out of 5 stars.